we should not live in a world where parents lose their children to pediatric cancer. That's unacceptable. St. Jude thinks that's unacceptable. And so as a community, we've been able to really move the needle. And it's just amazing to get to be a part of it.
Hey, what's up? My name is Chris, and welcome to Coding in Public. It's such a joy to be able to do today's video, not about code, but about St. Jude. St. Jude is a children's research hospital, and right now I'm doing a fundraiser that's just in its final few days, and by giving, you can get a bunch of cool dev prizes from Vercel and Mux and Neon and a bunch more. I want to talk all about that, but first of all, let's hear a little bit from Stephen Hackett, who I've known now for like 10 or so years online, but now I get to talk to him face-to-face all about St. Jude. I'm in the midst of this campaign to raise funds for St. Jude Children's Cancer Research Hospital, and I would love for you to join me. Let's hear a little bit about what St. Jude is, what it's like to go through the treatments at St. Jude as a parent and as a family from Stephen, and also hear about the global impact that St. Jude has had. So I want to welcome Stephen Hackett now to this video today as we chat over St. Jude. So Stephen, I'd love to first of all just kind of let everyone get to know you, and then I'd love to chat more about St. Jude.
Yeah, Chris, well, thank you for having me on. It's always fun to get to talk to people about this stuff. And your backdrop's way cooler than mine. I'm in a new office, and like, this is just what I have.
I had a professional designer do it, so it's not me.
Yeah, no, it's cool. There's a big Lego man back there. It's awesome.
I know, right?
Yeah, so I live in Memphis, Tennessee, where St. Jude is located. We'll talk more about St. Jude in a second, but I'm the co-founder of the Relay Podcast Network. We cover consumer technology. I'm on a couple shows that cover Apple, but we've got shows about independent software development, shows covering Google and Android, kind of tech more generally, the business of media streaming, sort of a lot of nerdy topics over on Relay. And we've been doing that 11 years now. And it's been a lot of fun. I've been independent with it for a decade now, which is amazing to think about. Just making shows and trying to create the best podcast content we can about the topics we care about.
I think that's like the passion, the nerdiness, like all that is very much like the people who I think tune into my channel as well. So I think you'll immediately find some connections there.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I know you got connected with St. Jude originally kind of personally as a dad. I'd love to kind of let everyone hear a little bit about that story and what that was like going through the process of having a child who has cancer and then getting actual real help from people who genuinely care about you and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a native Memphian. I've lived here my whole life. Just like a lot of other places who, have children's hospitals, like you see it, it's in the background. Didn't really understand the scope of what they did. And then in the spring of 2009, my wife, Mary, and I took our first child, Josiah, to a 6-month well baby checkup. And, parents may be familiar with this. You take your kid into the pediatrician to check on milestones, check on growth, that sort of thing. Actually, several times when they're really little. And we just kind of bebopped in there one day for his checkup, and it was a life-changing doctor's appointment. And the pediatrician had some concerns about milestones that Josiah wasn't meeting. Some concerns that, he had actually regressed in some areas, things that babies are supposed to do, turnover, that sort of thing. We were first-time parents and weren't aware of those things, but we're also just obviously terrified immediately. And the next day and over the next several days, things unfolded with some more tests and ultimately an MRI that showed that our 6-month-old baby boy had a brain tumor, and a serious brain tumor. We were admitted into our local children's hospital, not St. Jude, the sort of more traditional one. And Josiah had surgery, and a biopsy that came out of that surgery confirmed that this was cancer, which at this point we had been told to expect, right? Like, he's 6 months old. A tumor of this size and this placement will not be benign. It will be cancerous. It's just a matter of what we're dealing with. And when that diagnosis came, immediately we were told that, St. Jude is going to take over his care, once he was recovered from surgery. And he ended up having multiple operations in those early days to take care of some other things that were coming up. But we were ushered into life at St. Jude. And St. Jude is a children's research hospital focusing on pediatric cancer and other catastrophic diseases. So things like sickle cell is a huge thing. A huge amount of research going on into sickle cell at St. Jude as well. And it was I mean, it was such a whirlwind, right? We're young parents. My wife and I were 23. Like, we didn't know what we were doing. And we were just like running around trying to take care of our son, take care of ourselves to a degree, and like get ready to go to St. Jude. And the woman who was helping us with our intake stuff at St. Jude was like, just take a breath. Like, we know all about you. We have all of Josiah's scans, right? Like, anyone who's dealt with especially the American healthcare system knows is like a lot of it's up to you, right? We're not as evolved as a lot of our peer nations, and they're like, hey, we got you. Like, we know what's going on. We have his scans, and we ended up at St. Jude about a month after Josiah's initial operation. And that led to 18 rounds of chemotherapy starting when he was 7 months old.
Man, that's dramatic. I obviously haven't been through that myself, but my daughter, my firstborn was born like 5.5 weeks early, and she was in the NICU for 10 days. Mm-hmm. And like that experience. And then my youngest son last year, actually, which I don't think I've ever said this publicly because I haven't had a reason to, but was diagnosed with Kawasaki disease. And I spent like a week in the hospital with him. And both of those weren't, panned out to be not as dangerous as they first looked, but those, like that gut punch, is something that's way too familiar. And like, even as you're talking, like just emotionally going right back there, like you never forget those moments. And to have somebody there who says like, I got you.
Yeah. Especially as a parent, right? Like you want to provide for and take care of your family. And when that gets ripped out of your hands by a diagnosis, or even as something like one of my other children broke a bone recently, and like even in that moment, right? Like the school calls me, I go pick him up, and like clearly his arm is broken, and clearly we're gonna go and get X-rays and stuff. Like all of that stuff is so scary and overwhelming, and you're trying to not only navigate it yourself but help your child through it. And in our case, he was so young, he doesn't remember any of this, but he's doing really well now. He's a teenager and flourishing, and we've had to explain it kind of on the back end and talk to him about it. But yeah, anything in this arena, ours was maybe a little extra spicy, but lots of people go through that moment of like, this is terrifying. Like, I don't know what comes next. And it certainly sounds like you've been through that. And I'm glad to hear that your kiddos are doing well.
It is down a lot of times to those healthcare professionals. And I know a lot of other nations also, like, not only do you get good care, but a lot of times it's provided for. And that's not the case in the US usually, unfortunately. And so
that's right.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about like what makes St. Jude special in the financing side of stuff. Because that's like the other huge, like overwhelming cloud that's over your head the entire time. Like, am I going to have to mortgage everything I own? Like, right. Unfortunately, that's usually a major consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. So St. Jude does not bill their patients for treatment, travel, lodging, food. And so a lot of St. Jude patients, like I just happened to be in Memphis. It happened to be in my backyard, but almost every other St. Jude family I know has traveled from either somewhere else in the US or even internationally to be treated at St. Jude. And St. Jude doesn't bill any of these families for any of it. And I mean, we're talking millions and millions of dollars in our case, chemotherapy, surgery, endless doctor's appointments. And that means that you can focus on your child and your family, that you're not worried about, okay, what happens when they hand me that envelope? Like, am I selling like you said, am I selling everything I own?
Yeah.
Am I going to go bankrupt, right? Am I going to lose everything I have? You should not have to worry about that when you are staring, into the abyss like this. And so St. Jude doesn't bill their patients. And that comes from the very beginning. One reason St. Jude is in Memphis, it was built and opened in the early 60s, is Danny Thomas, the founder, wanted a children's hospital that would treat all patients who needed their services. And think about 1960s in the South and what that meant. And it means that they were integrated. It means that the designer of the first St. Jude building was a man who was a famous architect, but he was disallowed from entering some of the buildings he designed. And Danny Thomas was like, no, that's wrong. We're going to treat people fairly, with respect. And out of that came, we're going to treat these families without regard to their ability to pay or where they come from or what they look like or what they believe. And man, it is just an amazing thing. Like I've been around this mission since 2009 and sitting here now, like I've got goosebumps because it means that you can focus on what's important and know, because St. Jude is the best in the world at this, that you're not only getting care that you're not paying for, you're getting the best care on the planet and you're not being asked to pay a dime.
Yeah, I think one of the things, because this is now my 4th year joining you all in this fundraiser, so like I've listened and given years before that too.
Thank you.
I think one of the things about St. Jude that seems special, and I got a little taste of this when we were in the Children's Hospital locally here, but not to the extent it seems. Like they want you to not just be treated, but they want you to they humanize you in a way that a lot of times the healthcare system doesn't. Like it seems like they try to keep your education going. They really try to provide a at-home situation. I'm wondering, like, I think there's a lot internationally that they're doing, especially this kind of recent push that I want to talk about. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about what happens if you get treated there. What is it like? Like, what is the ethos? Like, what are they trying to like provide? And, how do they humanize the care so it's not just doctors and nurses and needles?
Right.
How do they treat you as a patient there?
Yeah, St. Jude's goal is to treat the whole child, right? Not just their diagnosis. And that takes a bunch of forms. I'll outline 2 of them. One of them is an area of the hospital called Family Commons. And that is a floor of the hospital that is set aside for kids and families to use. There's no medicine there, right? There's no treatment there. And it's not just like a cafeteria. It's this amazing place that they have a maker space. They have a music lab. They have an art studio. They have a barber shop, right? A lot of kids going through treatment will lose their hair. Our son did. And they have like a place where you can go get a haircut, or if you're a parent, you can go get a haircut if you've been, because a lot of these treatments some of them take years. In some cases with leukemia, it's over 18 months of treatment. And that means that you're going to be spending a lot of time there. And so the Family Commons is a place where families can disconnect from hospital life and enjoy time together, right? There's even like napping rooms you can you can check out, which are awesome as someone who did it a couple years ago. Family Commons is really special, and that grew out of a desire that families had for a space like that. One thing that St. Jude does really well is listen to their families. And so there is a lot of feedback that is solicited from families of what can we do better? What should we change? What do you want? What do you need? And the Family Commons arose from that. Like, we would like a place for our kids to be kids. And it's just an amazing spot. The second one, and I got to see this this year up close, is a place called Domino's Village. St. Jude has several housing places, both on campus and around Memphis. And the older ones, they're basically hotel rooms, right? Like there's a bed, maybe there's a kitchenette, but it's modeled after a hotel. And like maybe that's fine if you're in Memphis for a week every 2 months. But again, if you're effectively living at the hospital, that's not enough. And they listened to families and what families wanted. And so Domino's Village was a project that was designed to give families like meaningful personal housing on campus. And that means a couple of things. It means that these are apartments. They're not hotel rooms. They're multi-bedroom apartments, because sometimes you're going to have siblings that come along, right? Like say that your kindergartner is needing treatment, but you have a toddler as well, or maybe even a newborn. Like those kids often have to come along, and that gives the family space to have life, not be on top of each other. But one thing that really blew me away about Domino's Village is that it's designed with community in mind. Having a child with pediatric cancer or another catastrophic disease is really lonely, right? People mean well, people want to support you, but at the end of the day, it's really hard to get in the shoes of a family in the situation unless you're in the situation too. And so Domino's Village has all of these places for families to come together. There's this beautiful like outside playground where a family can basically like use they have their grills outside so you can do cookouts. They bring movies in because these kids can't go to a movie theater safely, right? Um, like movie studios bring movies in to Domino's Village for families to see. And it's all of these things that, again, arose from what families were saying. St. Jude listened and donors stepped up. And this beautiful building now in downtown Memphis housing these families is a great gift to them. I mean, I was fortunate enough, my wife and I were fortunate enough, again, Memphis is home. So we still lived in our apartment, right? We had our family with us. We had our friends with us. We had that support system because we were local. But again, most families aren't. And so St. Jude is putting things in place to build homes, to build communities for these families while their kids undergo treatment.
It's such a disruptive time of life. Like anything you can do to find stability as a family. And like even for the other siblings, again, just the week or so I was in the hospital with my son, like my daughters, like it threw their whole world upside down. And even now, like my oldest daughter will break down in tears anytime we bring up the fact that Jude was in the hospital. And so like to have a spot where you can still be a family, get that kind of quiet time together, has to be just so like refreshing. I would think as a parent, they just had like basically a maker space and a place where they would play. And that was all they had there. But that alone was just like a breath of fresh air for our kids. And to see Jude come and be able to play with them there, even like taught my girls without so many words, like he's going to be okay. And I think there's way more you can communicate to the family by being purposeful and thinking that way. And the fact that that arose from patients, I think is super cool. It tells you kind of the spirit of St. Jude more than, marketing banners could.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And really that because they want to serve the whole family. Like in Domino's Village downstairs, there's an outpatient clinic. With some kids, right, they may need to have a port accessed or an IV given, maybe at the middle of the night or first thing in the morning, right, depending on what's going on. Maybe your kid wakes up sick in the night or with a fever or something. And, St. Jude's a big campus, and some of the feedback was like, hey, we got to get dressed in the middle of the night. We got to go over to the hospital. Could we have some of this stuff here? And so they carved out a section on the first floor of the building that, it's not a full blown, treatment center, but it can take care of a lot of those things that come up. And if a child does need an infusion in the middle of the night, or they wake up sick or something like that, there's doctors and nurses in the building. So you can just come downstairs and see what's going on. And, that seems like a small thing. It's like, yeah, just, put some people in there and some IVs and like, but it's so meaningful that, hey, we can do this and I can let the other sibling sleep, or, we're not having to get out maybe in hot weather or cold weather because we have both here and go over to the hospital. It's like, this is all just here under one roof.
Yeah. As a dad with other kids, I'm like, letting the other kids sleep will significantly change my next day.
Yes. Amen, man. Yeah. I mean, and you know how it is too, right? Like when one of your kids has an emergency, like you got to do some triage sometimes. It's like sometimes the siblings get the short end of the stick. And so St. Jude is trying to, for families that have siblings in Memphis or at the hospital, trying to make them feel special and included too. There's lots of sibling days and a lot of programs for siblings to help them understand, what their brother or sister are going through. And so again, taking care of the whole family.
Yeah. Well, you've talked a lot about like kind of the local stuff. And I think that's so important because to be able to just be flown there, taken care of, like you don't have to be from Memphis, like you said. I really want to focus a little bit now on the international impact of St. Jude.
Sure.
I think especially to people who don't live in the U.S., it might just seem like, well, why would I just give money to random U.S. kids? Like there's plenty of needs here too. But the fact that St. Jude like shares research and like has this big initiative for international care, like I think to me that's what really excites me. Not that I don't care about those local, but the fact that this is bigger than just a hospital in Memphis. This is really about international care. So could you just talk a little bit about that and kind of both what they've done in the past and also new initiatives that they're getting behind right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So the pediatric cancer survival rate in the U.S. is about 80%. In other parts of the world, it's 20% or lower. There's a lot of inequity in treatment around the world in pediatric cancer. And St. Jude isn't happy about that. Like they can't treat everybody, but here in Memphis, but they can equip doctors and hospitals and clinics around the world with their research. So the research that St. Jude does is shared freely amongst the medical community. Even during this campaign, I saw an email from somebody who was in Europe, and their child was treated at an amazing children's hospital in their home country. But those doctors were in conversation with doctors at St. Jude who were experts in this diagnosis and like passing information back and forth and figuring out the best plan. And that's amazing to me, right? Like this, it's a great, where this family was, a great hospital. But they knew that, okay, this is something that's, not something we see every day. Let's go talk to the experts. And St. Jude's doors are always open to that sort of thing. But in addition to research and information and relationship, as important as those things are, and they are critically important,
Yeah.
another part of this is access to medication, right? So access to chemotherapy can be very difficult in some parts of the world. So starting this year, back in the spring, St. Jude is rolled out an initiative to share chemotherapy drugs with countries where they're very hard to come by. And they've started in 5 countries, Mongolia, Uzbekistan, Ecuador, Nepal, and Zambia. So that's 5 countries today, and that's amazing. But their goal in the next 7 years is to be in 50 countries and have medication accessible to 120,000 children. And what struck me with that is 7 years is how long we've been doing the Relay fundraiser. And so in the time that we've done our fundraiser, looking forward, they are, St. Jude, when they put their mind to something, they're going to do it. They're going to have medication in these countries. Some of these countries have no access to pediatric chemotherapy or extremely limited access, either in quantity or by expense. And St. Jude is providing these medications. They're providing the training to doctors so they know how and when to use these medications, right? These are powerful drugs that you got to know what you're doing to administer them, right? And they want the world to be more equitable when it comes to these diagnoses. And that's just amazing to me. I mean, I've had the opportunity over the years to meet families from all over the world. Some of them treated at St. Jude, but again, others treated by their local hospitals in conjunction with St. Jude. St. Jude has taken families with pediatric cancer patients out of war zones and bring them into other countries so they can continue their treatment. That happened in Ukraine several years ago. It's just thing after thing where St. Jude is looking around the world and asking, how can we help? How can we make this better? And that's super inspiring to me, right? Because, our story started with our son, and that's true for every family that walks through St. Jude's door, right? It's their son or their daughter, their child, on the worst day of their lives. Like May 8th and 9th, 2009 is like the worst 48-hour period of my life when he was diagnosed. But out of that has grown this ability to share St. Jude's story and to raise money for St. Jude and to let those families know that we have their back. And every single family I've talked to related to St. Jude has that same feeling. And they take that to their home cities, their home states, their home countries. And this truly is a worldwide mission. And it is just so exciting to be just the tiniest part of it.
I think for people who aren't accustomed to interacting with hospitals and research institutions, it may seem obvious, like, of course you would share your resources, of course you would share your research, but that is so not common in this world that once you know that, you realize just how special a place like St. Jude is to take what should be freely available, but unfortunately money talks too much, even in sensitive places like children's pediatric care, that St. Jude stands out. It really is a special place.
Yeah, not only are they sharing their research, but they're doing research that nobody else is doing or can do. A couple of years ago, I met a researcher at St. Jude who he deals in like microscopic imagery of tumors and cancer cells. And he said to me, like, Stephen, the microscope I needed didn't exist, so we built it. It's like, I don't know about you. I don't know how to build a microscope. Like, that seems incredible to me. And we got a tour, and it's like a science. I mean, it is literally a science lab in there. Like, it's like, how do we look at these things? How do we peer into cells? And so not only are they sharing their research, they're pushing the boundaries in what's possible and doing things that only St. Jude can do because of their size and their reach. And then sharing that those new frontiers they're breaking open, they're inviting everybody in their wake, and that is really cool.
Maybe as we end, really what this time together is about is trying to encourage people to get on board and be part of this. And maybe it's just $5, but I want to take the word just out of that. Like, every dollar counts. And
Yes.
That's my intention, is to try to help be a little voice in our little world. I'd love to hear a little bit just about what Relay has been able to do, and kind of the impact that we've already had, and kind of encourage people to come on board. So I'd love to hear a little bit of the history, and then we can be done.
Yeah, so our sort of official fundraising started in 2019. A few years before that, we had done some things and just kind of like collected some money and sent it their way. But in early 2019, started conversations actually with a friend of mine who works at ALSAC, which is St. Jude's fundraising and awareness organization, that we went to school together. And I was like, man, like, we're making this content, we're part of this like amazing tech community online. I feel like I should be harnessing this and using our platform for this. And that started an official relationship with the organization. And in 2019, I think we raised like $315,000, and I was astonished. It blew my hair back. I remember talking to my dad before we launched the campaign, and I was like, I just want to raise 75 grand. Like, we raised $75,000. Like, I'll be over the moon. And he looked at me. He's like, you're going to be over $250,000. And I, as many times in my life, I didn't believe him, but he was right. And every year since then, it's just continued to be amazing. At this point, the Relay community and community like yours, because we have this awesome community fundraiser platform where we all can work together in our own our own circles and raise money together. The broader community has raised, as of this recording, about $4.6 million for St. Jude, and that's not somebody writing $1 million check, right? That's everyday people like me and you. Doing what we can, whether it's a couple of bucks or a couple of $100 or a couple $1,000, whatever it is, because when we come together as a community, that's where difference is made possible. And it's amazing every year to see the numbers. And every year I get letters from people or notes from people of like your story, like when we first spoke, just how people have been touched by the mission, either personally or indirectly. And it's something everybody can get behind, right? Like, we should not live in a world where parents lose their children to pediatric cancer. That's unacceptable. St. Jude thinks that's unacceptable. And so as a community, we've been able to really move the needle. And it's just amazing to get to be a part of it.
Yeah, and if you're watching this, my encouragement really is to just say, like, what could I do? And it may be $1, it may be $5, it may be $10, it may be more than that, to get behind and say, I just want to join this in some small way this year. I've included a link down below to codinginpublic.dev/fundraiser, where you can give. And one of the really special things about trying to use this YouTube channel that is mostly about, coding and things like that is to say, like, what could I do with this little corner of the internet? And to be able to tie into what St. Jude is doing and make that kind of part of what we're doing here just means so much. And this year I've had several dev tools once again join with me, but this year I had Vercel join, Mux, Neon. Let's see, I think those are my new ones this year, but also Cloud Cannon and Dracula and Wallaby.js, my own Astra course. I think I'm missing one in there. Git Tower. All those have joined with me to basically say, hey, let's encourage people to give. And the nice thing is I've got all these things to give out now. And next week, actually a week from the day you're seeing this, I'll be passing those out to people who gave. And if you give at least $5, send me the receipt. That way I know you gave, since I don't have any direct correlation with St. Jude. Then I enter you into one of those drawings and you can win one of these things. So it's this really nice relationship where some people have provided these incentives so that you can give and also receive. And that's really what the spirit of St. Jude is anyhow, is this kind of community effort. And I hope you feel like inspired to be a part of that. And even if it's $5 is $5 more than they had before. But I'd encourage you to join us. And Stephen, I just want to say a huge thanks to you, not only for coming on today and chatting about this, but for kind of being one of those beacons that says like, hey, let's get behind this, because that's inspired me and inspired so many other people who are going to be watching this to get behind it as well. And we all just play a little part, and I appreciate the part you've played.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. And thank you for your efforts over the years to join us in this, as it does take everybody, right? It's going to take everybody to accomplish this mission. And yeah, it's a true joy. Like I'm sure you feel the same way. We're so fortunate to have built what we've been able to build. You know, it's not easy to build an audience on the internet. In some ways it's harder than ever. But then being able to use that for something good, like, yeah, we should all be doing this. And that's the beauty of St. Jude, right? You don't have to have a YouTube channel or a podcast network to do these things, right? Like, my favorite thing is like, you know, one of my kids comes home, it's like, oh, hey, like we're doing a bake sale at school for St. Jude. I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. Like it takes all of this stuff. So thank you. And thank you for letting me come on and share a little bit.
Yeah. Well, thank you all, and can't wait to see what we can do together this year.